I just remembered that I wanted to talk about this subject, which is man's undying hatred for nature, and what inspired me to make this video. A couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago, I went to this guy's farm, and it was right at the beginning of spring, so the grass was tall as fuck, right? I don't know, maybe 1.5 meters. It was beautiful, beautiful. Butterflies and shit. And we were sitting on the porch, right? On the deck outside, and this guy just tells me, I gotta cut the grass, man. And he said it, his tone was, extremely unnecessarily serious, right? This was grass we're talking about, right? So I just look at him like in disbelief, and I'm like, why? He had no livestock to speak of, right? He had no type of animal, right? And I asked him, what will you do once the grass is cut? And he said, well, I'm going to bag it, or I'm going to burn it, whatever, right? And yet again, I asked him, why are you so obsessed with this grass, right? And he told me that, it was too long, it was ugly, because he wanted, a nice, prissy, trimmed lawn in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is a really rural area, right? This guy seemed extremely obsessive, extremely, I don't know, the type of shit he was on, right? And this really struck a chord with me. This, I don't know what you might call it, this unnatural craving to interfere with nature, even though it isn't necessary. This hatred for nature. And another thing, this guy's borders, right? The fences around his place, his house, they were, trees, bushes, the border of his property were nothing but trees, right? And of course, some trees, the upper crown, the branches, they're thin and they, grow long, right? Towards the sun, of course. And he was like, I gotta cut those fucking branches because they're ugly. Yet again, he had to do this because they were ugly. And of course, to me, they were absolutely the opposite. Beautiful, right? And I asked him, whatever for, right? And he just couldn't give me a valid reason. They were just ugly. Nature isn't ugly. Nature knows best. And here's the problem. This undying hatred for nature, this sick need to interfere with the affairs of nature as if we know best, as if nature being here for billions of years, as if we assume that nature doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. And we, with our consciousness, with our big brains, we have the audacity to assume that our intervention is absolutely mandatory, right? So I didn't know how to talk to this guy. This guy, he had problems, right? And I've observed this undying hatred for nature time and time again, and I can't find any explanation for it whatsoever, other than it is, I don't know, evil. It is evil to assume that you have the right to interfere with the affairs of nature, right? This reminds me what George Carlin said, the moment when we fell from grace, the moment that we were cast out of paradise, was the moment when we interfered with nature, right? That is when we stopped being natural creatures, because we had the arrogance, the hubris to assume that perhaps we know better, right? And we had to insert ourselves into nature, that we had to dominate nature. This is a sick mindset to have, disgusting, repulsive. Leave nature alone, folks. Nature knows best, right? Let nature grow. It's like if I had, a property on a piece of land, I wouldn't cut the grass, I wouldn't mess with the trees. Just let them be. They know how to live. They know how to do their business, right? Trimming this and trimming that, it's whatever. It's unseemly. It's disrespectful to nature. It is an injury upon a tree, upon a plant, right? And this is another thought. Right? I don't know if I watched a documentary or if I read something, but apparently the Druids, they were tree worshippers. And if they caught somebody, a fool hurting a tree in some way for whatever reason, right? It didn't matter if he was mad or not. If they caught somebody molesting a tree, the Druids would execute that person without trial, without jury, immediately, right? Because did they know something we don't know about trees, about nature? I think they did. Obviously, they did, right? We still do not know the full extent of nature, right? And until we drop our silly need to intervene in its affairs, to mess with it, to change it, to mold it to our will, we will not breach this ignorance, right? And we will still hate nature, right? Because nature is pure. Nature is straightforward. I think a lot of people are afraid of nature, right? Nature is just there. It minds its own business, right? While we, unfortunately, are the complete opposite. We cannot, compel ourselves to mind our own business and stop inserting ourselves in other people's affairs, right? This isn't normal. This isn't natural. Leave nature alone, folks. Nature knows best. I know nature can be scary, let me tell you. Nature can be really scary, but it is what it is. It is what it is. And listen, no matter what human beings do, no matter how technologically advanced we get, no matter what kind of knowledge we adopt, no matter our inventions and breakthroughs, we will never be able to control nature. Never. Right? Never. It will never happen. And if you are a decent human being, right, who wants to live beside nature, your internal resources will tell you that it is so. Nature cannot be controlled. Nature cannot be subjected to our wills, and nature will fight back. Why do you think all of these earthquakes been happening, right? It's nature retaliating, of course. So yeah, that's about it. Like I've observed this time and time again. People just hating nature and wanting to meddle with nature and trying to decorate nature, and treating nature like it's some sort of object, some sort of possession or property, right? I mean, I don't know what causes such a mindset. I really don't, right? And no matter what people do, nature will always come back and take over. You see, I love, watching, these old cities, and temples, like in South America, right? Where, trees, they just have grown through these temples, right? For thousands of years, and nature took back, right? I like that. It shows me that we are temporary here, and nature will be here after us. And maybe that is what really upsets a lot of people, is that in the long run, despite our many skills and talents, and despite our innovations, I think a lot of people know deep down that we have absolutely no chance against nature, and nature will outlive us, right? And I don't see how this should be a problem, right? Right? I didn't know that we are in a conflict with nature, right? I'm not in a conflict with nature at all. Never have been, never will be, because I do not seek to intervene in nature, whatever for. I absolutely knew, even as a young child, that nature knew its shit. Nature knows what it does. We do not. We assume we do, but we don't, right? So all of this trimming, you see, I never understood this about people. They want to build something. They want to create something. They want to build a house or whatever. And let's say there's a tree in the way or something, a flower, and, automatically we gotta cut that bitch down. We gotta rip the roots. We gotta dig here. We gotta destroy this. We gotta burn this. We gotta cut this. Back in the day, in the olden times, in antiquity, right? People understood that nature was the elemental life force, right? The mother, if you will. And when they build their houses and such, they build it in tandem with nature. They build their homes around nature. They didn't cut down trees. They didn't fucking, had logging companies and shit, right? And I'm talking about, the tribes in the forests and such, right? Before the empires, right? So those people back then, if they weren't smarter than us, at least they had the right intentions, they were wholesome, and they had, kindness and compassion and an understanding, right? They had a deeper understanding of life and how everything works in a balance. This is what we have forgotten. Everything works in a balance. We have to work in balance with nature, and we have to respect it. Otherwise, nature will clap our cheeks and we'll be done for. Okay? Thanks for watching. See ya.